Hi, welcome back to the Broth Living YouTube channel. My name is Alyssa Adams and I'm the executive chef for the Salt Lake City showroom. And today I'm making us a little St. Patrick's Day treat. We're gonna be making an Irish soda bread with a little bit of a twist. So I'm gonna be using some browned butter that I actually browned a little earlier and then chilled. And we're gonna be adding some rosemary to it, so it's gonna be delicious. We're going to be using our convection steam oven to bake that Irish soda bread, and then afterwards, we're gonna let it cool, slice it up, and turn it into these beautiful little grilled cheese sandwiches. So let's go ahead and get started. What I've got here is about 3.5 cups of white all-purpose flour. I'm gonna be adding to this 1/2 cup of whole oats, okay? So we're gonna add that for some texture and a little bit of nuttiness. And then we've got our mixture of just a tablespoon of sugar for a touch of sweetness and flavor. We've got a teaspoon of baking soda, which is where the name soda bread comes from. We are also adding 2 teaspoons of baking powder here. And then of course I've got salt in here, about 2 teaspoons of a kosher salt, which is going to season and flavor our bread. So I'm gonna add this whole mixture right into the dry ingredients, so flour and oats. And I'm just gonna use my hands to kind of mix this up evenly. So brown butter always just brings a little bit something extra that regular butter can't. Then I can add this and I can sort of smush it into the flour. And then we're gonna take some rosemary and I'm just going to go ahead and pull it right off the sprig. Just pull backwards from the direction that it's growing and it comes right off, okay? And you're just gonna give it a nice coarse chop. Okay, gorgeous. So our rosemary is looking wonderful, and that looks like just a nice heaping tablespoon of rosemary. I'm gonna add it in, just toss it all together. We're gonna add some coarsely fresh ground black pepper. So I just have my pepper grinder right here and I've got it on a really coarse setting. That's probably about a 1/2 to 3/4 teaspoon coarsely ground black pepper. Give it one more toss. So everything is evenly incorporated here, okay? And then we are going to add our wet ingredient, which is buttermilk. So the buttermilk, this is important to our dough because we need that acidic ingredient, buttermilk, to react with the baking soda, which is a basic ingredient. And those 2 ingredients together are going to create millions of little air bubbles in the oven, which is going to help give our bread that rise, okay? So we've got 1 3/4 cups of buttermilk here, and I'm just gonna add it right into the center of my dough, okay? And then you really do not want to over mix an Irish soda bread because that's where it's gonna, again, get kind of tough. Okay, this looks great. I'm actually just gonna dump this out onto my bench surface here. And again, we're not really kneading this because if you overmix the dough, then it's going to be tough. So all you wanna do now is kind of bring it all together and then we're going to shape it into a little loaf. Okay, now we're just gonna go ahead and put our bread onto a parchment-lined baking sheet. Before we get this in the oven, we're going to need to do a few things. We're gonna actually need to brush it with a light egg wash, which is going to help in the browning and caramelization of that crust. And then before we egg wash it, we are going to need to score it. So this is a really cool, interesting part about the Irish soda bread. They actually cross it, and that is to ward off the devil, okay? So this is what they do to bless their bread. So I'm gonna now just brush the whole top crust with this egg wash. All right, and then finally, before we get this in the oven, I wanna do a couple more grinds of that fresh cracked pepper right on top. Nice bit of spice and heat. Okay, so that's perfect. Now we are ready to get this into the oven. How we're gonna get our steam oven going. We're gonna turn it on, so any button will turn your steam oven on. And then you're going to use the arrows to go to the convection steam mode. So we want to use this mode which has high heat and steam injected into the cavity, which is going to help give our bread the best crust and the best rise. So convection steam, enter. You'll see use rack position 2 or 1 and 3, hit enter. And then here we can adjust our temperature. So I'm gonna go up to 375 degrees, hit enter, and now we are ready to start, okay? The oven is preheated. We're ready now to bake our beautiful Irish soda bread. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this, get it right in, and this will be done baking in the next 45 to 55 minutes. Okay, you can see our beautiful Irish soda bread just came out of the oven. The smell in here is amazing. I just always wish you guys could be here to smell. That rosemary and black pepper is just coming through so strongly, but we have to wait at least 30 minutes for this bread to cool before we can slice into it, okay? So in the meantime, we're gonna make a quick little kale pesto. So in order to make that, it's gonna be really simple. I've got some Parmigiano Reggiano here, about an ounce. And then we're gonna add about a 1/4 cup of walnuts here. And then we've got 1 garlic clove. I'm just gonna throw that in there. It is already peeled. And then we're gonna squeeze in the juice of 1 lemon. And then finally, I'm just going to add these nice dinosaur kale leaves. It's also called lacinato or Tuscan kale. And then finally, I am going to add a couple gloves of olive oil there. We're gonna blitz this up and then taste for seasoning. Okay guys, the bread has rested. Pesto is ready. We've got my Irish cheddar shredded, and we are ready to make a grilled cheese sandwich out of this beautiful bread. Let's go ahead and look at this beauty. Ooh, that's a good crust. Oh, and it does have a beautiful crumb. So that's exactly what we want. Okay, and now we're gonna go ahead and do a quick assembly on our little sandwiches. Okay, so I've got my butter and buttering all the sides. And I'm gonna start with a nice heaping of that cheddar. And I like to just kind of like squish it down. Make sure that I can get as much cheese as possible. And then I'm gonna add a few dollops of that kale pesto. So that is the assembly of our grilled cheese. I'm gonna finish doing this other one, and then we're gonna go ahead and get these toasting up on the griddle. Okay, it's time to cook these babies. We're at my double griddle. I have got this side only preheated. I just turned the knob to 400 degrees and we waited about 10 minutes to get this thing nice and hot. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take my assembled sandwiches. You can hear that gorgeous sizzle, which is one of the best sounds in cooking. And it'll take about 5 or so minutes to get that side nice and toasty and golden, and we'll get that cheese to start melting. Then we'll flip them and they'll cook for another 4 to 5 minutes, and then we'll be ready to eat them. Okay guys, that is our Irish soda bread grilled cheese sandwiches. We used our convection steam oven to bake that Irish soda bread and get that beautiful crusty crust. And then we used our griddle to get that perfect, beautiful grilled cheese sandwiches. If you have the double griddle, you could do it for a crowd so easily. I think this is something that you should all make for your St. Patrick's Day feast. I personally need to take a bite right now while it's still nice and hot and gooey. Definitely something you guys should make. You get all the flavors of the rosemary and black pepper, the cheddar with that bright pesto. It's fabulous.